We also have tonight Shane, who works in the Ward 8 office, and I'm sure a lot of you know Nicola, who also works in the Ward 8 office. And Shane takes care of the newsletter and all of our communications, and Nicola is probably, if you call in or send an email, she's going to be the one that more often than not you'll be talking to. So you probably are familiar with her at least. So really just want to thank everybody for attending tonight. I know the concerns in the neighborhood and this past year has been a really tough year for everybody, and in particular in that the area of the Rolston neighborhood. So we wanted to make sure that we tried to communicate as much information to you as we can, and we're also really interested to hear your feedback and what you are seeing and observing in your neighborhood as well. So with that, this video tonight will be recorded. So any of the discussion we'll post on the website after the fact, so you can share it with your friends and neighbors and other people in the community who may not have been able to attend tonight. And we're always, as things come up, as things happen, if something comes to mind and you have another question or you need information about something, by all means, just email or call the Ward 8 office anytime. And maybe, I don't know, Nicola, do you have the contact info handy?
Hi, everybody. Actually, you can send an email to the same email address that you would be signing up for our fantastic newsletter, and it is really good newsletter. So it's ward8@hamilton.ca, and it's the quickest way to get a reply back as well. The office number is 905-521-3958. And those phone calls are converted by Cisco into an email. So I usually get back to everybody within a day or two. So yeah, if you have anything that you want to share with us, that's the way to do it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So yeah, we really appreciate everybody attending. Hopefully you get some information out of this. And like I said, any further communication, call or email anytime. So with that, I'd really like to thank Acting Sergeant, is it?
Yes.
Acting Sergeant Rogers for joining us tonight. She is the Mountain Crime Manager, so we have a dedicated Hamilton Police resource for the Mountain, Ward 8 being part of her service areas. So she's going to explain and go over some of the history and what the Hamilton Police Service is doing to address some of the issues in the communities. So, Officer Rogers.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone too for coming out tonight. A little different than how we usually do it, obviously, in person. So I think what prompted this meeting is the shootings that have taken place in the last few months. So we've had 3 shootings that took place in the Rolston neighborhood there. Those are all still under investigation, so I can't go into the details about them. But I can echo the media releases and that we do believe that they are targeted incidents, so that they're not random shootings. And like I said, they're still all under investigation at this point. And old Councillor did want me to talk a little bit in detail about them. The first one was the one in August, which was Algar and Lime Ridge. The second one was in September, the September 27th, that was Britton Close and Lime Ridge. And the third one was on Halloween, and that was Algar and Lime Ridge again. Earlier this year, there was also the homicide that took place at the plaza there on Lime Ridge at 310 Lime Ridge. And that one, there were people identified and charged in that occurrence. So for me, I started a project, it's called Rolston Roundup. I think the name speaks for itself. It's dedicated right to the Rolston neighborhood there. And the purpose is to increase uniformed patrol officers in the area. One, for your peace of mind of knowing that the officers that are there. The other one is to deter crime or make sure that we're present when things are happening. So you'll see uniformed patrol in the area. you can see the officers in the cruisers. You'll see action officers on foot or on bike. The horses have been out there. We have our HEAT team, which is our high enforcement action team. They are also in the area. They're plainclothes, so you won't necessarily see them. And we've been working with our gangs and weapons unit as well, and they are like undercover kind of operation. And so you won't notice them either in the area, but they're also working with me. So communication piece, so the last 4 Sundays, I came in on my day off to give a presentation to all the uniform officers in the division. So all the squads have been kind of made sure that they are all connecting the big pieces here and seeing the big picture so that they can see the linkages between all the shootings and make sure that they're dedicated to being out there and being present. So that project started November 1st. Overall for crime, there's actually a decrease in crime. I don't know if you want me to talk about that, Councillor Danko, or just stick to the shootings, I guess.
No, I think we can address kind of just overall everything that's going on in the area and the ward.
So I'm a crime analyst. So the crime analyst works with my office too, and she looks for trends all the time. So those trends would be, for example, the violence, the shootings, but they're also your car entries, robberies in the area, thefts, and things like that. So I asked her to pull the stats to compare the years here. In comparison to last year, all the events in general have decreased. Last year there was 531 events in the area, the 1 kilometer radius in the area there, and this year there's 372. So there's definitely a decline, but we just see that increase in the violent crime. There was 1 homicide, which was an increase from last year. Robberies were decreased by 1. Sexual assaults were decreased by 2. Assaults in general were also decreased by 7. Break and enters were almost reduced by half. Thefts were also reduced by half. Motor vehicle thefts were reduced almost by half. Theft from your motor vehicles was almost 2/3 of a decrease. And we were up in drug occurrences. There are 3 drug occurrences, and there was none reported last year. So that kind of gives you an overall for kind of the crime that's going on in the Rolston community there. You guys have a lot of attention from the police service right now, so we hear you. Like I've talked a lot with Councillor Danko. Like you guys are concerned, obviously, as you should be, and but know that we're out there and we are working proactively to make sure that this decreases and we get rid of it from happening in your neighborhood. That's what I have. Is there any questions?
So I actually have a question here, Amberly. So the last 2 months, and I'm speaking in general terms, the last 2 months we have had the shootings take place the last weekend of the month. We are coming up to the last weekend in November. Are there any measures are you taking to patrol the neighborhood this weekend?
Yeah, we'll definitely be in the area this weekend.
Perfect. Are there other questions? For those of you maybe just joining us a little late or missed that part, there is a chat option on the side if you have any questions that you don't necessarily want to share with everybody. We do have another question here. I'm not sure how much you can speak on this, Acting Sergeant Rogers, but what about last night's shooting?
Last night's shooting was separate than the shootings that were in the Rolston neighborhood.
Okay.
There further questions or maybe, you know, if residents in the area just, you know, want to share your observations or concerns, that would be, you know, maybe not in a question, just comments are good too.
Okay, we got another question here. What do you attribute to the large decrease in thefts and thefts from vehicles?
COVID has made a big difference, I think, in some things. People are home more. So I think you have more witnesses because you're just generally in your houses more. So I think that COVID does make a difference when it comes to property crimes for sure.
Okay, and just another follow-up to, I guess, some of the talk about the shootings. Are shootings believed to be related to drugs in the area?
I can't say for sure. It's under investigation, like I said, right?
Of course.
Don't be shy.
And if you do not want to share it with the group, there is an option, like I said, for private chat. It would go directly to me, and I will not be sharing any of that info if you are a little nervous.
And likewise, if you wanted to talk afterwards, I am off now for the weekend, but I'm in on Tuesday, and you guys can email me all the time. It doesn't even have to be just about the shootings in this kind of forum for tonight. It can be anything from the neighborhood you can share with me. And sometimes when you're sharing things, if you're worried about getting your name up and stuff like that, your name can be confidential with me as well. So if you have any information in regards to the shootings or information in the neighborhood, please don't hold that back. Don't hold it back because you're nervous of your name being out there. That's something that we can talk about, and there's to provide information without your identity being exposed.
Another question here, and they're coming a little faster now. I see police patrols driving down our streets semi-frequently. How often are the patrols, if that's information you can share?
So frequently. So I know for sure yesterday I had officers there twice. They're going in between their calls for service. So patrol officers will go, like I said, in between their calls. I'm watching kind of daily, so I know for sure yesterday they're happening more than once a day based on our report because we have a running log of them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you'll see them patrolling. Sometimes you might see more ride lanes in the area, stuff like that as well. So does that answer the question?
If there's a follow-up that comes in, I'm sure we'll address that. I know in the lower city, there are parts of the area with CCTV cameras or other kind of recording devices that are not privately owned. Are installing cameras an option in the Ralston area, or at least in the problem spots?
They are an option, and they have been discussed, and we'll see where we go with that.
Okay. Is Ralston still a safe place to live?
Yeah, is Ralston still a safe place to live? Was that the camera question?
Yeah. Okay. And So I think, too, just to reiterate for Acting Sergeant Rogers, she can't get into details about the shootings itself for some of these questions rolling in. But if there are other questions, that would help.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay. There was last night's shooting in the park, which is right in the same area. And how can it be unrelated? It's still Ralston. Like I've walked my dog there, and I've walked every night in the last 3 weeks. I haven't seen one police car in the last 3 weeks. And that's like the fourth shooting in 3 months. Like, is it safe for me to go for a walk in the park?
So as I had said, that the shootings are not they're targeted shootings.
The bullets are targeted.
And that's fair. So the bullets are stray bullets, and that's why we have increased presence. So you haven't seen us there, but I can assure you we've been there at least almost daily. We've been there over 33 times in the last couple weeks.
But it's got to be the highest shooting area of the city of Hamilton right now. Like, they should be patrolling there all the time.
So the Hamilton Mountain has experienced a significant increase in the shootings over the last few months. So, and that's why we are addressing it with the project and sending more resources into the area.
Well, thank you for that. And I'll count every time I go for a walk to see if I ever see a police officer, but I haven't seen one marked car probably in the last 3 weeks in the evenings ever. And I'm not exaggerating this. I go out with my wife every night for a walk, and I haven't seen one, except the nights of the shootings. Then there's 20 there. Actually, I am exaggerating. Usually 6 or 8 there when there's a shooting.
We're gonna keep this rolling, kind of on track here. So we have another question that came in through the chat. What's being done to increase community policing? So is there engagement with residents, with students here?
Sure, I can answer that.
Than patrols. Sorry.
Yeah. So for community policing, this is a form of community policing, having a community meeting like this. The school officers are also running a similar project with high school students, where they are doing more debriefing and stuff like that, and asking them as well what they know of going on in the area as well. So there is a school program that's kind of running alongside Rolston Roundup as well.
Okay. And again, if you have any questions, please share it in the chat. So I guess another question that, again, maybe can help people understand, I guess, the nature of policing. Why do we not hear about some shootings in the news or HPS feed until days after, or not at all?
The shootings, I don't know of any shooting actually that's happened that hasn't been in the media, so I'm not sure about that one. So the media releases are put in. So sometimes, for example, the one on Halloween, the paper doesn't print again until Monday. So I know that one was printed in Monday's paper. So that would be the example of why maybe it took a couple days to come out.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question here, and I kind of remember these as a child, but is there a plan for community block watch or any kind of citizen program for the area?
So there isn't neighborhood watch, but there's a lot of criteria that go behind creating a program like that, and that's a much bigger discussion than to have right now. So if someone is interested in a neighborhood watch, that's something we can discuss perhaps next week.
Okay.
The purpose of neighborhood watch, just to maybe explain it a little bit too, is it was usually community groups that would get together, and it was for information sharing and stuff like that, and for sharing with the police kind of what was going on. With technology these days and the way we watch crime trends, we know about it all the time. So the communication piece is still important because we need to make sure that everything's being reported. But the crime stats in technology really paint the picture for us all the time.
Perfect. Are there any other questions? If I did miss something that you would ask, maybe if you could type it again. There were some parts that were coming fast and furious there.
Yeah, I could just ask a question about reporting. So, Acting Sergeant Rogers, if we see something suspicious as residents, or if there's an incident that's not an emergency versus an emergency, where is that line? When do we call 911? When do we call the non-emergency number? And are there actions we can take, as residents that live in the neighborhood?
So in progress crimes, when something's happening in the moment, those are 911 calls for sure. Suspicious activity, you kind of have to be on a little bit of judgment. If you think it's something that urgently we need to get to, then it can be a 911 call. Depends on suspicious, right? That's a pretty broad scenario for what someone interprets as what's going on. So you can call 911. You're not going to be criticized, I don't think, if you thought something was suspicious and you're calling 911. When you're calling the non-emergency line, you're still talking to the communications operators, right? It's just the 911 calls are just getting that little bit more of a priority bump than the others.
Another, and we kind of touched on this a little earlier, but are patrols present at night? Obviously, during the day, they're a lot more visible. But could you talk about any patrols happening in the evening, nighttime, early morning?
They're happening all the times during the day. I know for sure off the top of my head, there was officers that were there. Trying to think of the squads working. They were there on the weekend, I believe it was, and they were there for 3 hours. So at one point, as the same officers, at one point they were doing ride lanes in the area of Garth and Limebridge. I knew they were doing park and walks through the 45 Montcalm neighborhood there, complex. And then they were just in the area doing reports and kind of side by side for a little bit as well. So they were there, though I noticed, for 3 hours at one time. They were just obviously had some extra time. And that was between midnight and 3 a.m.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The mounted unit you'll typically see more likely during the daytime just because of their schedules.
Someone here is asking about what's the general kind of response time to the Ralston area from the police headquarters?
So you have your own beat officer that works in the area. It depends on the call for service. So we have our priority response system. So it would depend on the call for service, and everything's kind of prioritized. So it could be a couple minutes. It just depends where the officer is at that time and the call type coming in.
Thank you. So here's one, and for those, I guess, who might have video surveillance or video doorbells, whatever that may be, should any of my surveillance cameras ever pick up something that could be used as evidence as part of an open investigation, what would be the best way to share this with the police?
You can just call into the non-emergency line. You could call into the mountain station, let them know you have it. We do a canvas, so when there is like a crime, for example, like the shootings, we will go door to door and actually ask people for something like that within the days following. But if we miss you for whatever reason and you have evidence, then absolutely bring it forward. Be it call like the mountain station or just call the non-emergency police line. You could talk to me or whoever just to kind of let us know and we'll come get it.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So just on that, can we share the non-emergency number?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that everybody's aware that there is a non-emergency number, and what it's used for, because up until recently I wasn't actually aware that there was one. So
yeah,
911's not the only option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our non-emergency number is 905-546-4925. So that will get you to communications. You can also call the Mountain Police Station, and that phone number is 905-546-4930. And then you can run that. So the front desk officer, you can run by the scenario, and if you're looking for advice on, whether or not you think patrol needs to come right away, and if they think that police do, they can transfer you right to communications as well.
And just a follow-up from me on that, one of the things that I've learned through you, Amberly, acting Sergeant
That's
Rogers,
okay. Amberly's good.
is just the importance of reporting incidents to the non-emergency number. Things like if people go through your car at night, or something goes missing from your shed, or just kind of those day-to-day things that a lot of people, you get in your car in the morning and you see somebody went through your glove box and you're like, oh darn, but you don't think to actually report it. So Officer Rogers, maybe you just explain the importance of actually calling these things in to police and reporting them.
Yeah, absolutely. So for a couple different reasons. One is crime trends. We don't know what's happening in the neighborhood and what resources need to be deployed where if we can't see the crime stats to support it. So those trends that are happening. Sometimes people aren't reporting. I think the vehicle entries, the thefts from vehicles are probably underreported the most, and probably in my own opinion. I don't have any stats on that. Sometimes people feel embarrassed because they've forgotten to lock their car and they don't want to share that. Don't be embarrassed over stuff like that. Even if they've rifled through your car, maybe like you have them on video or someone down the street has them on video, and you don't know what they did after they left your place. And if they took someone else's, if maybe you have them on video in your driveway going in your car, but they didn't take anything. But down the street, they went in the car and took someone's laptop or work documents or something like that. So you don't know how you're helping your neighbors too if you're not reporting it, because definitely they're not just coming to one driveway if they're coming in to do like a car entry. They're checking every car door along the street probably until they find the ones they can successfully just enter. Locking your car doors. It always comes up when we talk about like thefts from vehicles and stuff like that. Locking your doors is huge. So often when you see thefts from vehicles, the most common thing is checking door handles until they find them that they're unlocked. It's not common to have them smash out a window just to rifle through a car. It happens, but it's not common. Same thing with your sheds and stuff like that. Keeping in mind stuff like, and this helps in general for all kinds of crime, but lighting, right? Your shrubs and stuff like that. So if you have bushes around your property, trying to keep them low so then the people can't hide behind them and stuff like that, and kind of sneak around. The lighting, like I said, helps. Making sure you have locks on your gates, locks on your sheds, things like that. Cameras, even if you can't afford cameras, you can get like fake cameras even, I think, from Dollarama and stuff like that too. So just things to deter them, for sure.
Perfect. Any other questions from any members participating? Here's a great one. Do police still offer a safety audit of your home? Now, I know this might be a little different with COVID right now, but I guess generally speaking, Sergeant Rogers.
Yes, there's SEPTED audits. So SEPTED stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And we do that for businesses and we do it for houses as well. So if someone's interested, then they can for sure send me an email, or even if they send it to Nicola and Nicola can get it to me, that's definitely an option. We can set up an appointment for sure.
Now, I guess this question is kind of directed to Sergeant Rogers and Councillor Danko. Will these meetings be regularly held going forward?
So we typically run a community meeting at least once a year. I know that I did one already earlier this year, Councillor Danko, at I think it was Terryberry Library, and we had some good discussions there. And then going forward, they can happen for sure. We just have to come up with dates and space them out for sure.
Okay.
Just if I could add on to that, obviously this year is a little different to say the least. We would like to have more community meetings for sure, given the current climate, and specifically for community safety meetings. Right now, we're scheduling these sort of as required. So if that's something that the community would like, that I think that you all think would be helpful, we can certainly schedule some follow-up meetings. So maybe that's something you can share with us offline if you think that would be helpful, because the best thing that we can do through the Ward 8 office is collect and share information and make sure that the Hamilton police are involved and aware of everything that's going on in the community. So, yeah.
Just another question here. what is the instance of break-ins during the day in the neighborhood? If you can touch on that. Could you also maybe, Sergeant Rogers, if you're hearing this, I guess at the Mountain Department, are there a number of dogs being stolen during the day from break-ins in the area, or are you able to touch on it?
Yeah, so break-in enters, I have it broken down. There was only 7 that happened in the Rolston community there for all of this year. So I didn't break it down into regards to how those 7 went daytime versus nighttime. You don't often see it at nighttime because people are in their homes. So if they're trying to get in and steal something, which is typically what they're doing, they're doing daytime when people are working. So those numbers, I think, are also down because of COVID and everybody being home as well. Mm-hmm. That's made break and enters decrease, I think, for sure this year. Dogs, I have not heard of one break and enter involving a dog in my whole career, and it's not to say it hasn't happened. If that was a question, it was thefts of dogs. Was that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever heard of a break and enter involving the theft of a dog.
Okay.
So I'm sure it's happened. It's not common at all.
Okay, do we have anything else coming in? Maybe Councillor Danko, if you could just touch on, is there anything that the city is doing, or is this focused more as a policing matter?
Right now, in terms of, I think the focus is on the violent crime incidents in the neighborhood specifically, which is a Hamilton police response. There is a differentiation between what we can do as the city and what the Hamilton Police Service can do. So, like, I as much as I'd like to, sometimes I have no control over the police response, or I have no direction over how the police address what's going on in the issue. But like I said, the best thing that we can do is to share information as a community and make sure that information is shared with police, so that all of us are the ones that live in this neighborhood. All of you specifically live in this neighborhood. So having that open communication between us, and whether that's through our office or directly with the police services, is I think the best thing that we can do, and make sure that we are keeping our eyes open in our community and reporting things. And I do know that the police are committed to addressing these things, and in particular with the violent crimes. Everybody deserves to feel safe in their community, so we need to do everything that we can to make sure that that's true, and that where you live, where you work, and where you raise your family is of paramount importance, of course.
All right. Well, since questions seem to be slowing down a bit, and not everybody remembers directly on the spot maybe what the question would be, right? Maybe it comes to you tonight, maybe it comes to you tomorrow morning in the shower. I'm kind of putting Sergeant Rogers on the spot here, but in the next 2 weeks, we would like to do maybe a follow-up newsletter article. So if you do have questions, you can send them into the Ward 8 office. We would send them off to Sergeant Rogers, and it would kind of break down like a question and answer kind of blog or post that you would see in our newsletter. So if people, if something comes to you in the next day or two or a week down the road, and hopefully our Sergeant Rogers is agreeable to this, we could send them in to her. She could answer them, and we could do a bit of a post there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I think since we have about 5 minutes left, we're going to end it right there for tonight. I just want to thank everybody again for joining in. I think we are happy with the number of you who are concerned about what's going on in the area. And maybe we could have Councillor Danko and Sergeant Rogers just say one or two last words, and we'll all sign off for the night.
Thanks, Shane. Just really quickly to wrap up, again, appreciate everybody's participation. Please talk to your neighbors in the area, people while you're walking your dog. Keep that communication open, and again, just really appreciate your participation and your sincere interest in what happens in your community. It's really important to have residents that are engaged and talking to each other and to us and to police. So thank you, everybody.
I didn't give much of a history on myself at the beginning. I started my career 14 years ago on the mountain. So I was familiar with Montcalm area and the Rolston community back then. Prior to that, I was a lifeguard at Westmount Rec Center for 5 years. So those were kind of old stomping grounds for me because I grew up in the neighborhood. So I can understand your frustration on how things have changed over the years, but we are committed to being in the area and helping you guys move past this and get the violence out of the neighborhood for sure.
Perfect. Well, with that, thank you again, Sergeant Rogers, for logging on with us. We'll ignore the difficulties earlier.
Thank you.
And Councillor Danko, thanks obviously for joining and for helping to put this on. And again, thank you to the Ward 8 residents. You guys are the greatest. Shout out to Ralston. I grew up in Ralston. I still love Ralston. Ralston forever. And with that, everyone have a good night. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.